One Piece chapter 1090 had leaked a lot sooner than I had expected, as we return to Egghead Island with Luffy and the others planning on how they will escape from the fleet of marine ships surrounding their location. The enemy have about 100 ships with close to 30,000 marines on board. To say that they are outnumbered would be an understatement. Thankfully, Vegapunk has a plan to get through the marine blockade as the Straw Hats set their sights on their next destination. In the last chapter, we learned about the aftermath following the destruction of Leluzia, and then we had finally returned to Egghead Island where the Straw Hats had been revealed to have defeated the Seraphim off screen. The chapter had ended with the Straw Hats having been shown to be in control of Egghead Island, with the Gorosei listening to their conversation, along with Saturn and Kizaru, who are present amongst the 100 ship fleet. The last chapter left us on the cliffhanger with Luffy wanting to use York as a shield in order to secure their exit from the island. After the week-long break, I cannot wait to dive into this week's chapter. How will Luffy and the others escape? What is Kizaru and Saturn's next move? Where are the Straw Hats planning to travel to next? One Piece chapter 1090 is titled Admiral Kizaru, and it hints at him having somewhat of a significant role to play during this week's chapter, so be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I will be discussing some theories about this week's chapter, as well as the actions that Kizaru takes after he had learnt about the Straw Hats' plans from Rob Lucci. There is a lot to dive into, so without further delay, this is my breakdown and analysis of One Piece chapter 1090. The chapter picks up directly after the end of the previous one, with Luffy now having snatched the Denden Mushi away from York in order to talk directly to the Gorosei himself. He introduces himself as Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will become the Pirate King, and he demands that the world government withdraw their fleet if they truly care about York's safety, as the Straw Hats are now in an alliance with Dr. Vegapunk. The reactions of the Marines at large is one of shock, even with Admiral Kizaru appearing surprised at this turn of events. Some of the Marines even comment about the Straw Hats being as evil as they had imagined them to be, once again showing how messy the lines can appear within the world of One Piece, with the good guys being the ones to take someone hostage. Interestingly, Big News Morgans is also listening in on the conversation from the World Economic Journal headquarters, alongside Princess Vivi and King Wapol. All of them are equally shocked by the situation currently unfolding. Attempting to make the most of the situation, one of the Gorosei asks Luffy who is still alive within the Labo phase area alongside him. Luffy begins to answer but is immediately cut off by Robin, who tells him not to say anything before ending the call. The Gorosei correctly identify the voice as belonging to Nico Robin, while Nami sighs in disappointment at Luffy's naivety. Robin patiently explains that talking with the Gorosei will only give them more information, and that the group can't let their opponents easily learn information about them. Luffy acknowledges that Robin is correct, but still asks if they think that the Marines will withdraw their fleet. Usopp yells that they will never do this and warns Luffy not to underestimate the Marines. Following the call, we return to Saint Saturn as the Gorosei declares that the Marines fleet must protect three things. The first is the physical safety of York. The second is the Punk records, which constitute Vegapunk's brain. And lastly, the power plant which is needed to produce the Mother Flame. Other than these three things, everything else is of no concern to them. Vice Admiral Doberman points out that Rob Lucci and the remaining Cypherpol agents are still there as well, to which Saturn replies that he is just considering the worst case scenario here, and that it is important that they prioritize the most important factors to them. Doberman acknowledges his orders before Saturn continues on to say that human beings are just like insects, and that even if their numbers reduce, they will just multiply once again. Doberman treats this as a dismissal, although he looks a lot more uncomfortable than he did at the start of the conversation. Back in the Labo phase, York is tearfully warning the Straw Hats that she had made a deal with the Gorosei, and that if anything happens to her, the marine fleets will eradicate this island just like they are done with Ohara. Nami whacks her on the head with her climate attack, nearly knocking her out, as York weakly says that the Gorosei will hear of this. Nami yells at her that they don't really care, as Chopper asks Robin if her injuries are feeling better, and we pan out to see what the other members are doing within the room. Robin replies that her injuries have been well treated thanks to Chopper, which causes him to lose his composure from the compliment. York is groaning in pain while Nami keeps jabbing her with the climate act, while we see Zoro egging her on in the back. Luffy and Bonnie are enjoying a feast while Sanji watches them. Brook and Frankie are watching the rest of the group. Lucci and Kaku are on the other hand talking to each other further back, with Kaku expressing his embarrassment at being so injured from fighting two Seraphim, to which Lucci reassures him that he knows how he feels and he tells him to get some rest. Lilith is crying with Edison's body in her arms despite the fact that he is still alive. Atlas is focusing on something that we cannot see yet, while Vegapunk watches her, and Usopp is fiddling with a Den Mushi screen. Out of the Vegapunk satellites, we learn that Chaka and Pythagoras are confirmed to have died, while the remaining 4 are heavily injured. Just before we move away from the group, Kaku asks Lucci what he is whispering about, to which Lucci states that he is just talking to himself. Usopp finally completes what he was attempting to do with the Den Mushi, and he contacts the people in the laboratory underground basement in order to ask if they are okay. Everybody down there is celebrating the fact that they have been saved, while also enjoying a feast similar to the one Luffy and Bonnie were having. They ask Usopp if he can get them out of the basement, to which Usopp tells them that he can't. They then ask for him to at least help them move somewhere else, because having those creatures close to them is giving them creeps. We see that the creatures in question are actually the Seraphim, who are all encased within a bubble that is similar to the one created by Kuma's devil fruit. The group downstairs express their worry for if the Seraphim go out of control again, which leads to Usopp questioning Vegapunk if he can guarantee their safety. Vegapunk reassures them that the bubbles that the Seraphim are trapped within are the same ones that have been used within the Pacifista Mark III. They're resistant even to bomb blasts, and since he had made them with the same properties as Sea Prism Stone, even devil fruit users are incapable of escaping them. Inside the bubbles, we see S-Bear, who appears to show no emotion, then S-Shark, who looks somewhat bored with the situation, S-Hawk, who expresses outrage that they are being trapped in the bubbles, and S-Snake, who explains to the group that they don't have to worry about being attacked since the Seraphim didn't receive any orders to eliminate them. Frankie then takes over the communicator from Usopp and expresses his gratefulness to S-Snake because of her deciding to undo the petrification on Frankie and the others. Vegapunk jumps in at this point to mention that it was strange that she had decided to do this because he didn't program her like that. In a flashback, we see that the reason that S-Snake had undone the petrification was because Luffy had asked her to, as Luffy had told her that she was the only one who could save them. It seems like Luffy somehow completely missed the fact that she wasn't the real Hancock, which is totally in character for him. S-Snake still, on the other hand, responds just how Hancock would have, immediately becoming flustered and obeying Luffy's request. Jinbei bursts out laughing at this point, commenting that she's the perfect replica of Boa Hancock, looking down on everyone except for Luffy. Vegapunk immediately starts taking notes as he mutters to himself that these emotions must be one of the pieces of information transferred through the lineage factor during the cloning process. Luffy once again thanks S-Snake through the call, and in typical Boa Hancock fashion, she mistakes this for a declaration of love. While this wholesome moment is going on, we see Atlas speaking to Vegapunk, telling him that despite managing to get the communications working again, they still can't open the Frontier Dome, meaning that they won't be able to escape. York interrupts at this point, revealing that she had locked all of the defenses with a password that she is deciding not to share with their counterparts. Lilith is enraged by this, but York laughs that the password and the world government are the two forms of defense that she has against them. Stussy breaks the situation down as it stands, telling Vegapunk that they are surrounded on all sides by a fleet comprised of 100 ships with nearly 30,000 marines on board. Vegapunk admits that the situation is rather dire, while Sanji makes the useful contribution of asking Stussy if she wants some coffee. Vegapunk addresses Nami at this point, asking her if she is the navigator of the crew. She confirms that she is and shows Vegapunk their log pose, with the 3 directions that the device had identified back in Wano, the closest of which is to the northeast of Egghead. Vegapunk confirms to Nami that this is where Elbaf is located. Luffy and Usopp lose their minds at this revelation and begin dancing around and singing a song about Elbaf. Stussy notices Lucci staring at her and tells him to stop, and Vegapunk begins to form a plan. Since the Thousand Sunny is already located at the Labosphere Stratum, they won't really have any issues getting to the ship, but since the island is blockaded, he thinks that it will be impossible to escape through the coast. He determines that they will have to go to the northeast of the island and use the giant robot, the Vegaforce 1, to fly over the blockade. However, since it can only fly within the airfield of Egghead, it will fall down as soon as they leave the range of the island, and the group will then have to face the Marines. Frankie here chimes in at this point and states that they have no reason to worry because the Sunny at that moment will fly over 1 kilometer away, which impresses Vegapunk and causes him to ask questions about the Sunny's capabilities. Atlas states that this plan is fine, but it all relies on them disabling the Frontier Dome, which York is still refusing to give them the password for. Vegapunk, feeling challenged by this, attempts to hack the password alongside Atlas and Edison, and he leaves Lilith in charge of commanding the Vegaforce 1. Luffy, Bonnie, Lilith, and Frankie hurry over to the Sunny in order to enact the plan, since Vegapunk could hack the password and disarm the dome at any moment, which would leave them vulnerable to to the Marines' attack. The group makes some conversation on the way over where we learn that Lilith has never left the island before. Bonnie also compliments Sanji when Luffy mentions how skilled he is as a chef, to which Luffy comments on how weird she is to suddenly be in such a good mood. She expresses relief because she is no longer targeting Vegapunk, so her good mood must be stemming from something that she had learned within the memories of Kuma. Luffy is relieved that she is happy now because they won't have to deal with their crying like the previous night, which Bonnie firmly denies doing. Back over at the Marine fleet, we learn that Rob Lucci has somehow managed to contact the group and reveal the information about what is going on within the island. Saturn and Kizaru discuss the situation, with Kizaru commenting on how Luffy was bluffing, trying to convince them that he has control over the situation, when in reality they are cornered like rats. Saturn points out that since the Frontier Dome uses lasers as its defense system, then Kizaru should be able to bypass them with his Devil Fruit, which the Admiral accepts may be possible. Kizaru admits to being slightly reluctant, however, since the guard Vegapunk stationed out there, Sentomaru, is a friend of his. While Saturn tells Kizaru just to ignore him, Kizaru replies that ignoring a man who's determined to fight for his duty goes against his ideals. He continues on to say that if they start the assault now, then Sentomaru will order the Sea Beasts and his 50 Pacifista to sink the Marine fleet, which will result in enormous casualties. Saturn complains about how complicated the situation is becoming before asking if they have managed to identify where the power plant is located. Kizaru comments on how the shrewd Rob Lucci is already managing to provide them with all of the information that they need. We then see the Marine fleet preparing for battle, with the different vice admirals located around the fleet giving different sets of orders to the soldiers under them. Just as Luffy's group arrives at the Sunny, Kizaru makes his move, using his Devil Fruit to bypass the barrier and blockade as he manages to enter the island. Sentomaru senses him approaching and orders his Pacifista to obliterate the fleet, before challenging the man that he calls Uncle head on. We then see the two of them collide in an epic exchange, with Sentomaru boasting that his defense is the strongest in the world. Back with Luffy's group, we see someone commenting on the flash of light below them before Luffy's face drops as he reveals that someone very strong has just arrived, which brings us to an end to chapter 1090. Some people have been commenting that the fear which Luffy displays at the end of the chapter shows that he isn't fully as strong as the top tier fighters in the world of One Piece, which I totally disagree with. Just to cover some recent events, we see Shanks display a similar feat when he had used his observation haki to see the destruction that Kid was about to cause with his attack, shortly before he himself had defeated Kid with a single attack. Then there's the flashback with Whitebeard and Oden in Wano, where Whitebeard comments that a monster is coming, even though he still managed to defeat him. Even Kaido appeared shocked and worried when the scabbards were able to break the scar that he had received from Oden, despite the fact that he was never in any real danger while facing off against them. So overall, even though I think Luffy is definitely worried about sensing Kizaru here, I think that Oda has exaggerated his expression here for dramatic effect, which builds on the tension as the chapter leaves off on this crazy cliffhanger. Now this isn't to say that an admiral is nothing to worry about, and Luffy being worried by sensing Kizaru is quite understandable. Also, my thoughts on Luffy's reaction take into account how calm he was in Wano over Green Bull's arrival, since in that situation the admiral was outnumbered tremendously, whereas in this situation it is the Straw Hats who are heavily outnumbered. We also have the incredible clash between Sentomaru and Kizaru, which is about to kick off an intense battle. How do you think that this fight will go down? While Sentomaru boasts one of the strongest defenses in the world, this didn't stop Lucci from managing to heavily injure him with a sneak attack not too long ago. I'm not sure if we're going to see more of this fight in the next chapter, or if it will begin with Sentomaru already defeated, which would help to highlight the difference between someone who is only strong and someone who is one of the strongest. Well, this was chapter 1090 of One Piece, with Luffy at the start of the chapter confronting the Gorosei directly and stating his dream to them. The chapter continues this incredible tone as we learn that the Straw Hats are headed to Elbaf next, and the Marines are making their move with Kizaru arriving on the island, which may kickstart another intense battle unless the Straw Hats are able to escape from the island in time. Vegapunk has been revealed to have formed an alliance with Luffy, and the Gorosei are trying their hardest to secure the means to recreate Mother Flame, which can only be made on Egghead Island. There are a lot of different motives at play here, and now that Kizaru has finally made his move by clashing with Sentomaru, it is only a matter of time before the battle fully escalates. I'm super excited for the next installment of One Piece, as we wonder if Luffy and the others will be able to safely escape, and if they will be able to reach the highly anticipated island of Elbaf. Unfortunately, One Piece is on another break next week, so we have plenty of time to theorize and speculate about the events that are currently unfolding. What are your thoughts on this recent chapter? Did you enjoy Luffy's conversation with the Gorosei? Did you like seeing how S-Snake is similar to the real Hancock and how she had obeyed Luffy's orders? What do you think Kizaru's next move will be, and what are your thoughts about York's secret deal with the Gorosei? As always, I look forward to reading the discussions in the comments, so be sure to share your theories and speculations with me. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next One Piece video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.